Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you happen to be joining us during your day or your location. We are thrilled that you chose to spend a little time with us here on 3Squares. This is another exciting edition, and we are live today for the first time in many times. Trying to coordinate calendars becomes increasingly challenging for the Squares and our guests. I'm Charlie Arnott with the Center for Food Integrity and Look East, and we are dedicated to keeping the food system trustworthy. Here along with my two co-hosts, Kevin Ryan and Susan Schwally.
And I'm Susan Schwally. I lead the new product, USites, the world's only usage intelligent platform at QualSites. And we are breaking down the barriers of the say-do gap and understanding consumer behavior in the moment.
And I'm Kevin Ryan with Malachite Strategy and Research, helping CPG and food service companies at the front end of innovation.
Susan, that description sounds very complex. Sometimes you're going to have to tell us what it actually means.
Sometime I will tell you. It is remarkably simple and beautiful, but we are not talking about that today because we have a great guest.
We have an amazing guest today. We have an amazing guest today. And Dr. Jess Steier and I have never actually met. We were supposed to. But we were connected in speaker prep, and we found ourselves to be kindred spirits, and I've been an enormous fan of Jess and her work ever since. She has her doctorate in public health. She is founder and CEO of Unbiased Science. She is an accomplished public health expert. She is a respected independent voice on public health and science. Her August guest essay in the New York Times, quote, "The Playbook Used to Prove Vaccines Cause Autism," tackled one of the most damaging myths in public health, that vaccines cause autism. If you've not yet read it, you should go do so. Dr. Steier is dedicated to rigorous scientific inquiry and bettering the health and welfare of communities. Her work is also featured in The Lancet, Salon, NBC, Forbes, Nature, Agro, Food, and Medium, and she writes prolifically on Substack, and she is an amazing writer who will captivate you immediately. And that's one of the things that I think is probably her single superpower, is her ability to really connect and draw you into what she has to say, and then her rigorous review of science. So it's that magical combination that is her superpower. And Jess, we are thrilled you are here with us today on 3Squares.
Well, I am thrilled to be here, but I don't think I'm living up to that introduction, Charlie. But thank you.
Well, as far as
so
I know,
much.
you are. As far as I know, you are.
Thank you.
We've got a lot to cover today. If you have a question, again, we're not live all that often, but if you do have a question or a comment, drop it into the Q&A, and we'll be happy to get to that as best we can. So we want to get right after this. I'm going to start by sharing some research that I found we use from time to time. This was research done by Pew from March 10th to the 16th of this year. And what they are testing is, those folks who believe that we can no longer agree on facts. So 80% of Americans say when it comes to important issues facing the country, Republican and Democratic voters disagree not only in plans and policies, but also cannot agree on basic facts. So 80% of the population says we no longer agree on basic facts, and that's a problem. That's a huge problem for us as we continue to try and understand what constitutes truth and how do we move forward, and that's where Jess's work is so crucially important. So Jess, kind of kicking it off here, we know from our work and others' work that trust in agencies, FDA, USDA, and others, continues to be diminished. We're losing confidence in the trust in our agencies for a variety of reasons, most of which is because they've become politicized. And people who thought they could trust on the independence of the scientists in those agencies are no longer as confident that they can trust in the scientists in those agencies. So is there an association, an influencer? Is there somebody who can break through with credibility at scale? And how does Unbiased Science go about creating and maintaining and growing that share of voice that's so important?
So, at risk of being totally self-promoting, that is the goal of Unbiased, right? Unbiased Science is to be one of those trusted voices. I think you're tapping into something really interesting here, which is that the word evidence has become sort of subjective. And as you said, it's very clear that we're not agreeing on what is a fact, right? What is evidence? So the other thing I'd say is I think we should distinguish from these federal health agencies, like the figureheads, from the actual scientists at these agencies, many of whom I am friendly with and are doing incredible work and are under, a lot of pressure and constraints right now. But to your point, what does this mean for the public? I think that major medical and professional organizations have really stepped up to the plate. So I know, we'll talk about food for sure. I'm also very involved in the vaccine space. You mentioned my essay in the Times, and organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and other equivalents, right, and other medical specialties and subspecialties. They've really stepped up their comms, which I think is great. Unfortunately, and tell me if I'm rambling here because I could talk about this for hours. It's almost like those organizations and physicians, clinicians, frontline responders, they're sort of the new target for erosion of trust, which for many of us is really, really scary. So at recent Senate hearings, at press conferences, you'll hear called into question physicians' integrity. Are they getting paid to push things like vaccines? And it's like, oh my gosh, we know that people don't trust or often don't trust, pharma or industry. And here we had our clinicians, our frontline responders who just 5 years ago, people were holding up signs, thanking them during the pandemic. And now it's, they're being vilified. So that's why many organizations like Unbiased Science, but there are many, many incredible ones, have cropped up to try to fill that void. And these, like I said, or other medical professional organizations have stepped up. But it's a huge problem. If you'll give me one more second to just ramble a tiny bit further, the way that I try to create, or I think you said a shared voice, is that I don't want us to. I'm trying to depolarize, right? I try to build bridges between the left, the right, as you said, everything has been so politicized, and focus on our similarities. So yes, I'm a scientist, but I'll often lead with the fact that, hey, I'm also a human. I'm a mother. I'm a daughter. Let's find common ground. And also, let's hear your concerns and let's respond to your questions and concerns, not just using these canned replies like trust the evidence, right? I think it's a different time, and maybe we'll talk more about this, but the bar has been raised, right, on the type of information that people want. And I think that historically science has been a little bit paternalistic, and maybe people feel like they're being talked down to. And I would argue that the new approach is, we know that people. Last thing is the Edelman Trust Barometer. People responded that they trust scientists on par with their peers. So again, that people don't want to be talked down to. They want to be respected and included in the conversation.
This
Well said.
this really segues into my question, referencing that New York Times essay about, first of all, I love you and your mom are in a bar. I don't remember what the cocktail was. A very specific cocktail. You're in
Brandy Alexander.
That's it. Brandy. Gosh, that's a throwback to the
That is a
70s.
throwback.
That's
Okay.
a real
Big time
throwback.
Right?
throwback.
Okay. So you were having a conversation about, I think it was three gentlemen who were varying levels of vaccine skeptics in the bar over your Brandy Alexander with your mom. And
This really sounds like the introduction to a joke.
I know it does. We'll make a joke out of it somewhere. We will. But you were talking about the value of that one-on-one conversation. And based on what we just talked about, that there is all this fragmentation, share of voice, and not one national lead out there. Can you talk a little bit about how that might play out? And my question, I think you already answered it, but I'll tell you what my original question was. How effective at myth busting and getting real information to people has been at the local level? And I was interested in doctors and healthcare systems. And you just made some comments about that. That's eroding.
I do think it's eroding, but I would say that on the whole, they are still trusted, right? People do have longstanding relationships, or some people, not all people, with their PCPs. And so there is a level of trust there. So I wouldn't say it's been totally eroded, but it seems like that's sort of the next target, which is really frustrating for folks like me, and I'm sure all of us. But I would also say that I don't know how forthcoming people are with their clinicians, right? There's a little bit of that white coat effect. I
Mhm.
would say that they probably act a bit differently in front of their clinician than they do in front of their friends and peers, at the bar, like when I was sitting there with my mom. So I think some questions can be answered, but there's sort of like a different level and layer of skepticism and concern that may not be raised, at the doctor's
Mhm.
office. And also you think about the constraints of time, and if you're there for some other medical reason, like how much time can actually be spent really digging into these topics. So I actually think we need to do, and we being scientists and, I don't know, capital S science and the medical establishment, we need to do a better job of training people, or helping people, I should say, navigate conversations. I think a lot of times we'll throw a lot of numbers and stats at people to try to, give them information and build that body of evidence. But I don't know how much people retain, right? It's helpful and some people might
Mhm.
appreciate that, but can they then take that really granular scientific technical knowledge and then relay it to their friends, right, at the bar or around the
Mhm.
Thanksgiving table with Uncle Joe, and so I think it's more than just giving people information, it's helping them communicate that information, right? Focusing on some fundamentals, some common themes in falsehoods and misinformation versus the really nitty gritty facts. Again, I'm not saying the
Mhm.
nitty gritty facts don't matter, but I'm just thinking, I don't know how much people retain that. What is that? There's like
Right.
the teach back method. I think that's
Hmm.
right. I don't know how giving really nitty gritty facts, how effective that would be.
Right. Kevin and Charlie, if you'll let me,
Yeah.
my other question really ties to this, and then I will
Sure,
relinquish
sure.
the mic. So I've spent a lot of time with consumers as a researcher. I love it when you talk about things like confounding variables, testing control, sample size, study design, correlation, causation. But to the point that you just made, that is not anywhere near the majority of people. They know other things, they have other focus. So you're talking about being kind of evidence driven, using that, but there's a lot of emotion that people are using to make decisions about their health choices. Can we talk a little bit about bringing this down to food, maybe like food and supplements? Like our clients are constantly asking us, what do I talk about and how do I talk about it in health space? You have any thoughts on that's a big one, but do you have any thoughts on how they could do that effectively?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much we could talk about there, right? But there are definitely some fundamental concepts that come up time and time again when it comes to food. And a big one is the dose makes the poison, right? And also, I'd say that the dose makes the benefit. So when we're talking about things like supplements and we're talking about really, really tiny amounts of some active ingredient, where studies, then there are clinical trials looking at much higher dosages. So it's like, okay, you're taking this really expensive supplement, but is it actually doing anything? But helping people understand just that concept, the dose makes the poison. Okay, you're telling me that there's a risk. At what level of exposure? I mean, this is something I say time and time again. It's come up a bunch when it comes to things like heavy metals in food, right? Or, although that's a tricky one because I know it's always like, we want to be as close to zero as possible, but helping people then understand that, all right, well, heavy metals are in the earth or in the soil. And so how realistic is it to get to zero, right? But when we talk about things like pesticide exposure and, that comes up so much. There was something recently with, Girl Scout cookies, and we've had Cheerios and all these other things. And I'm telling people, oh my gosh, okay, there's the presence of this substance, but how much is there and how much would you need to consume to even reach that threshold of theoretical risk? And it's like, okay, unless
Mhm.
you're eating 9,000 Girl Scout cookies, you probably don't need to worry about these really, really unbelievably minute trace levels of, of pesticide. And then the other thing, sorry, just if I'm being too long-winded, just give me a sign here, is helping people think through, oh my gosh, there are so many examples, but like the implications. Okay, so you don't like pesticides. Okay, so let's walk through a scenario where we don't use pesticides. What does that look like? What does that do to our food supply? What does that do to the cost of food on the shelves? Like helping people think through some of those practical, logistical things. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, Susan, but those are things that are just, I could apply that to so many questions I've received about a ton of different products and concerns.
Yeah, I'll kind of piggyback off of Susan's question because mine's, staying within the food space. You speak kind of, to some of the misinformation or I guess misunderstandings that consumers have. We've all heard them. To Susan's point, we've all talked to consumers about these things, but there's so many food myths that exist. GMOs and seed oils are probably the most popular ones right now. How or what do you think brands should do in this space? Do you think that they should be raising up and trying to communicate to consumers the truth and this is what we believe and this is the science and all that kind of stuff? Or do you think that they should stay quiet, somewhere in between? What do you think the role for most brands is?
My answer is it depends.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things that, if we hear them, it seems like so egregious, but maybe it hasn't picked up a lot of traction. And if, addressing it could shine a light on something that really, we say is a nothing burger, right? Like not
Right.
a lot of people aren't talking about it. So why create, concern when there needn't be any, right? But I also think companies could and should be doing more to communicate either directly or in partnership with scientists and science communicators. There have been so many times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish that this company would speak out and talk about the
Yeah.
incredible safety testing and all the things that are going on in the background. Like the public I don't think the public has a sense of how much goes into, the development of these products and how they're tested and the regulation, excuse me. And
Mm.
even that example that I just gave, and I hope it's okay to give such a specific example, but with the cookies is I think it would have been super powerful to put out a statement showing this, data visualization and contextualizing risk, something that I cannot tell you how many
Mm.
thousands of messages we got from mothers saying that their daughters were being accosted outside of, ShopRite selling the cookies. And it's like, oh my goodness, something like that. I feel like could be pretty easily addressed and effectively. The last thing I'll say is that I do think that's easier said than done, and I'm an independent science communicator. I think companies also have to, there are a lot of considerations and liability and all that.
Hmm.
So sometimes the statements that come out end up being, I don't know if whitewashed is the right term, but they end up like falling flat. So that's why I do think partnerships with those of us who are independent can be quite powerful.
Mm.
Okay, first of all, if there are any Girl Scout troops that are running long on shortbread, just reach out to me. I'm happy to help. Happy to help with that. And I don't know that I'll eat 9,000, but I can come pretty darn
You have
close.
a freezer. Yeah, I know you probably have a big freezer.
Oh,
I
So,
do.
yeah.
I do have a freezer.
um,
So
yeah.
we'll talk about my barbecue at some other time. So Jess, one of the things that I was curious about, your New York Times guest essay, the playbook used to prove vaccines cause autism. What do you learn from that, or what did you learn from that, and several other things that you've analyzed that can provide learnings to those of us who want to give people evidence-based information to support their informed choice, right? I mean, misinformation and fear mongering are two key strategies. Well, we're not going to do that, right? We're not going to do that. We're no bueno.
Mhm.
So what did you learn that we might be able to apply that could actually help us become more effective?
So I think the playbook for food is a little different than what I wrote about with vaccines. With vaccines, I was talking more about how we have all these incredible studies, these massive observational studies, and how the data have been manipulated using some shady statistical techniques. That's a little bit different than what I see happening time and time again in the food space. I think there are some consistent logical fallacies that I'm seeing, right? So I mentioned the dose makes the poison. That's a huge one. Another big thing that drives me bananas is this. People will refer to preclinical studies or in vitro studies, right? And
Hmm.
then completely extrapolate to human risks. So this comes up a lot when we talk about things like food colorings or food additives. And I always say, well, yeah, unless you're a rat being like drowned in a bucket of, whatever dye it is, you probably don't need to be concerned. So I get very frustrated when I see a lot of wellness influencers spreading fear based on like one teeny tiny study, again, preclinical in rats or whatever it might be, and then being totally taken out of context. What else do I see? I think another big thing that the food industry, just honestly, American culture in general, will need to address is how we approach risk versus other countries. Because this comes up time and time again, right? This idea of risk versus hazard based approach. And oh, well, are foods safer in other countries? And oh, they're banning this and this and that. And there's just so much misunderstanding there, and people not understanding that both approaches are rigorous. One is not better than the other. Here in America, with our risk-based approach, we tend to, we take into account things like likelihood of exposure to these things, dosage, all that stuff. And it is unbelievably robust. And some really easy things that we could address, like, no, this is not banned in another country. It's just labeled something different. Like, there are just so many things that sometimes I'm like, gosh, someone give me a megaphone. I put it out through Unbiased, but I wish more people would do it because they just come up time and time again. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, Charlie.
No, you did. And I think, high fructose corn syrup and others are a great illustration of products that are simply labeled differently in different countries.
Oh my gosh. And on that note, thank you for saying that. This appeal to nature fallacy, I cannot believe I didn't bring it up sooner. This idea that anything natural is superior and anything synthetic or processed, heaven forbid, right, is inherently bad for you. That, and I think really with the unbelievable success of the MAHA movement, they've really tapped into that, right, with this idea that everything should be natural. And I'm often pushing back against that. And I give the example, and I can't remember if we've talked about this in the past, Charlie, but like sugars, that was a great example, like high fructose corn syrup versus honey versus syrup versus table sugar. Like your body doesn't really know the difference between those things, right? Chemically, they're the same. And so, yeah, that's another one that stands out.
I always like to remind people that the plague was natural, but that's a
right. And
Kevin. Debbie
that people
Downer
died.
today.
No, but you're right. And that people, this idea that everything was better in the past when we were drinking like unpasteurized milk. Again, people died of dysentery when they were 7. Like our life expectancy at birth
milk was known as the white poison. I mean, there are, you can see cartoons.
Oh, we had a quiz on this.
Yeah, you can see cartoons of back in the day where they would have skeletons, ladling milk from the same container, and all these children were dying from it. It's like pasteurization was amazing. It was just amazing. So many children lived, but anyway.
So we're going to add that to your bio, right? The plague was natural and milk was liquid, was white poison.
It was considered, it was called that. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing.
Kevin doesn't get invited to a lot of cocktail parties.
No. Yeah. Not so many. Not so many.
Yeah.
All right, Susan, last question.
We do love you, Kevin. I asked my question.
Be nice to the quizmaster, though. Be nice to the quizmaster. So, all right. No, I thought you had one more here.
No, I had two.
Consumer evidence-based versus emotional.
I think she talked about the emotional aspect.
I did. Do you not listen to me when I do? I did 2 in a row, and I asked permission to monopolize 2 in a row.
Because that gives us more time for the quiz. So
exactly.
With that, we'll turn it over to the Plague Master, Quizmaster, Kevin Ryan, to see what he has
I
to
just
help
can't
us
suffer
today.
fools. That's what it is. I cannot take it. I can't take it. All right.
Jess,
anyway, quiz.
Jess, you have to understand he was taught in Sister Marguerite in Catholic school.
That's true. Yes.
This explains a lot about Kevin.
It does. Right. It explains a lot. All right. So the quiz this week, the theme, Oktoberfest. Which, if for some of you may say, oh, wait a minute, it's still September. Well, Oktoberfest is usually celebrated end of September, beginning of October. So it's perfectly in line. So everything Oktoberfest. So first question.
Sam Adams.
No. First question. German Zeppelins, like the Hindenburg, were infamously filled with hydrogen gas. We all know that. What's less known is that to hold the hydrogen gas in place, the Germans used cow intestines, the same ones used in making sausages. How many cows did it take to make one Zeppelin like the Hindenburg? Was it A, 5,000 cows, B, 20,000 cows, C, 100,000 cows, D, 250,000 cows?
What do we do?
We're all
Do we
shocked.
all just say the letter?
Yeah, which
Yeah,
one
yeah,
do you
yeah,
want?
yeah,
Which one
yeah.
do you want?
I'm going to go C, 100,000 cows.
100,000. Okay, Charlie's locked in.
Those intestines
going
have a little
B.
elasticity
I was
to them.
B, 20
B.
for Susan.
Yeah,
B20.
B.
All
Yeah.
right. You are all incorrect. It is D, 250,000 cows to make
No.
one Zeppelin. The intestines were chemically treated and then flattened into what's called gold beater skin. That's what you call it when you flatten it, because it's used to make gold leaf. It's very durable and you can pound them together and separate the pieces of gold. Sausage production was therefore banned during World War I because of the need to put Zeppelins in the air.
Oh, that would be a hardship in Germany.
Yes, it
That would
was.
be a
hardship.
Certainly
huge
was. All
hardship.
right. Question 2. Pretzels were commonly featured at wedding ceremonies in the 16th century. What role did pretzels play in weddings in the 16th century? Was it A, the knot in the pretzel was symbolic of the union of the bride and groom, and a pretzel was placed over the door frame of the church as a new couple exited? Was it B, the pretzel was seen as a wishbone, like a wishbone, with the bride and groom each making a wish and pulling on one end and then eating a piece? Was it C, pretzels were given as the first food the couple shared the day after the wedding? It was thought the symbolism of the two halves in one was good luck for the marriage. Or D, pretzels were common marriage favors handed out to guests at the wedding, and then when prompted, people would dip their pretzels in honey and wish the couple a sweet union.
There's not an answer that is tied to beer in any way.
Nope. Oh, yes, there
There's
will
pretzels. There's pretzels.
No, I meant with this
at
one, pretzels and beer. I mean,
Oktoberfest.
yeah, it would be.
C.
I'm still thinking it's
Is
Sam
this-
Adams.
C.
somewhere.
Was that Jess? C?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm
Okay.
going A. I'm going A.
All right,
Well-
the knot over the door. Okay.
What
Susan?
was the wishbone?
Wishbone
B.
was B,
B.
and then D was marriage favors.
I'm going B.
All right. Susan is correct. It was a wishbone. So the bride and groom each would pull one end. So apparently started in 1617 in Switzerland, and it may be the source of the phrase tying the knot. Actually comes from pretzels.
How about
Ah.
that? Very
Yeah.
cool.
That's cool.
Who
All right.
knew?
Question 3, maybe. Question 3. Beer may have played a key role in the origin story of what spooky character? Was it A, zombies? In the Caribbean, a molasses-based beer was brewed with local herbs and hallucinogenic mushrooms and was said to leave people in a stupefied state, likely leading to stories of zombies. Is it B, witches? Women brewers of the Middle Ages were said to wear tall hats to be seen in a crowded market and had large cauldrons, and that may have led to our description of witches. Was it C, Frankenstein's monster? So Mary Shelley was famously holed up at Lake Geneva in 1816, the famous year without summer. And due to the lack of wine harvest that year, her and her writing circle drank mostly Bavarian beer. Or was it D, the vampire? In 12th century Eastern Europe, it was common to leave beer at the graves of the dead for a month after their death. Failure to do so led to the warning that without beer, the dead would rise and drink from the living, leading to the vampire legend. So which one was it?
Jeez.
Well, you know I have to say witches.
That's what
Okay.
I was going to say too. And I don't know, for folks who can't see, I'm wearing a girls will be
Yes.
girls sweatshirt with a bunch
Yep.
of witches around a fire.
Yes.
So I had,
Yes.
yeah. have to be on
We're going
theme.
there. We're going there. right?
Charlie?
I'm either zombies or Frankenstein. I can't decide which is better.
They're close.
They are close. They are
They are
close.
close.
I think I'm going to go with Frankenstein because Stein is in the name. and
Oh,
the
there
beer
you go.
Stein. Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're incorrect. It is witches. It is witches. Yes. So there's a theory that alewives, women who made beer, were pushed out of their trade by men who were brewing beer by accusing them of witchcraft. Even though the fact that they often had a lot of cats around because they had a lot of stored grain.
Oh, sure.
That got incorporated. But the hi-hat at local markets, the cauldron and the cats all got incorporated into the witch idea.
I'll be
And some
darned.
people believe it might be because they were basically being pushed out of their
Wow.
yeah. Okay. Question 4. Which of the following
It's the
was
patriarchy again.
Yes.
I was just going to say the
Always.
Yeah.
patriarchy.
It's always the patriarchy.
which of the following was an actual historical title connected to mustard? A historical title connected to mustard. Was it A, Keeper of the Royal Mustard Pot? In the court of King Louis XIV in 17th century France, courtiers claimed this position ensured the Sun King's table was never without Dijon mustard. Was it B, Chancellor of Dijon? In 1720, Burgundy's Mustard Guild supposedly awarded this title to regulate mustard quality and protect Dijon's dominance. Was it C, Custodian of the Golden Seed? In the 16th century Nuremberg, a spice guild records mention this honorable role tied to safeguarding important mustard seed purity? Or was it D, the Grand Moutarde de Papa? In 1330, Pope John the 22nd of Avignon appointed his nephew as Grand Mustard Maker to the Pope, an official papal role. So which one was it? Keeper of the royal mustard pot, Chancellor of Dijon, custodian of the golden seed, or Grand Moutarde de Papa?
I'm going with the mustard Nepo baby.
Okay. So D. A, keeper of the royal mustard pot, King Louis.
I'm going B. I feel
B.
like the French are very protective of their culture and food.
Right. Charlie is correct. It is D.
Ooh.
Pope John the 22nd was reportedly very fond of mustard, and his family came from Cahors, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, near Dijon. However, the title probably was nepotism to keep it in the family. All right. Last question. Ooh. At Munich's Oktoberfest, after sausages, which meat is the most consumed? Which meat is most consumed at Munich's Oktoberfest? Is it A, Hendel, spit roasted chicken, which is usually served like a half portion, seasoned simply with salt, pepper, and paprika? Is it Schweinsachse, which is crispy roasted pork knuckle, slowly cooked until the skin turns crunchy? Is it Ochsenspieß, which is a whole ox roasted on a spit and carved fresh and served in a Oxbratenei, which is an ox tent? Or is it Steckerfisch, which is whole fish, usually mackerel, grilled on a fish over open coals?
Okay, props to you for your pronunciation, by the way.
4 years of German in high school. That's all I got.
Wow. B.
Schweinsachse.
Yeah,
okay.
I was the
pork knuckle.
Me too. I'm going pork knuckle.
I'm pork knuckle.
Okay. You were all incorrect. It is actually Hendel. It's actually spit roasted chicken.
No
At
way.
Munich Oktoberfest, they serve over 400,000 chickens are eaten each year.
What?
Schweinsachse is very popular. The ox is becoming less and less. But yes, Schweinsachse is up there, but the Handel is definitely number 2.
Now, if they had my pork butt, it would be number 1.
Well, of course it would be.
That's true.
Of course it would be.
That is true, Charlie.
I
Yeah, 100%.
believe, I don't know. Anyone
I
keeping
think it's
track?
a tie.
I think it is a tie.
I think it's a 1-to-1 tie.
I think it is
I
too.
think so.
The
We all
witches
got
and Nepo
one.
baby. Yeah.
Yes.
No, I thought Charlie got 2 of them right.
Did
No,
you get 2, Charlie?
I don't think so.
I think you did. Wait, hang on. No?
We
We-
should
we
need an
got a
official
lot
scorekeeper.
wrong.
I think it's
We
just
got a lot
one.
wrong.
Yeah, because the other one we all missed big time was the Hindenburg.
Oh,
The
that's
Hindenburg.
right.
Yeah.
It's one of
Yeah,
my
that was
favorite
like-
facts is the fact
Yeah.
that it was just
That's a
filled with
lot of
sausage.
cattle.
Along with the
It's
plague.
a lot.
A
And
lot
think
of
of the work
animals.
needed to process
Stitch them all
those.
together.
Yeah.
into
Yeah. It was
one
insane.
Airtight balloon.
Yep.
I
Awesome.
still haven't gotten past the fact that that's what they were made out of, much less the amount of cattle.
Do you
Like,
just think
I
it
had
was
no
just
idea.
a giant balloon full of air and there was nothing else in there? Yeah, I did. Always
No,
did too until I read about it.
Knowing all the different ways that we use animal byproducts, that one didn't surprise me. Just the volume of
The
animal
volume
byproducts that were
yes.
required.
No pun
Yeah.
intended.
This
I
was
guess I don't know
fun.
what I thought it was made out of.
Isn't
Yeah,
the quiz a
isn't it
good
fun?
time?
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
it's always a good time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Jess. Thank you. You are always welcome back. Fabulous knowledge. And for people who want to find you, where are all the various ways they can find you?
Literally everywhere, all over social media at Unbiased Sci Pod. We have a weekly podcast. I'm on Substack and Medium. But yeah, social media at Unbiased Sci Pod.
Great. If you have a chance to read our longer form content on Substack, I would highly recommend it because it is very compelling. So one of the kiddos must be in the background.
I'm sorry. I'm going like this to my dog. I'm giving
The
a shush
dog.
sign as if one of my 5 dogs. So yeah, it's time for me
Five
to let them
dogs?
in.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I want
all right.
goats and pigs and the whole thing. But anyway, thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
me. This was a blast.
Yes,
Yeah,
thanks
thank
everybody.
you.
Join us
Yep.
again next time on 3Squares. You can always find us on 3squaresgmail.com. That is the numeral 3 squares mail at gmail.com. And until October, where we'll be celebrating Oktoberfest, have a great rest of your month and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks everybody. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.